the elongation of the skull, an ancient and mysterious ritual that has crossed the boundaries of time and space. A practice shared by widely separated cultures, from the pre-Columbian civilizations of Central America to ancient Egypt, and extending from China to Australia. But what if we discovered that this ritual was not just a complex ceremony, but rather a clue to the existence of an ancient people? Or what if this was actually the revealing sign of the existence of a civilization with non-terrestrial origins? Today we will explore one of the most fascinating enigmas of archaeology, the dolichocephalic skulls discovered in various parts of the world. What is the exact meaning of these artifacts? Why do they continue to inspire imagination and research among scholars? Get ready for an extraordinary journey to a distant era, a journey that could overturn everything we believe we know. But before we set off on this adventure, if you haven't done it yet, subscribe to the channel to support us and not miss our new videos. The scientific term for this condition is dolichocephaly. The skulls found in different parts of the world with this particular shape were in most cases shaped through the practice of cranial binding, a process known as cranial deformation. But how is this procedure performed? A newborn skull is remarkably flexible at birth and retains this characteristic for several months. As a result, shaping the skull becomes possible by applying a bandage or a cord around the head, which, together with the use of a board placed behind and sometimes in front of the skull, can gradually alter its shape. According to numerous scholars, the period required to achieve this modification generally ranged from 6 months to 3 years. According to researchers, cranial elongation could have various meanings. In some cultures, it was a symbol of high social status and was used to distinguish members of an elite or particular ethnic group, while in others it was considered a feature of beauty, and therefore those who had it were more desirable. Some theories also suggest that this practice was linked to specific rites and religious beliefs. But are we sure that's all there is to it? Or is there a much more complex and mysterious reality behind cranial elongation? In 1928, Julio Tello, one of the greatest Peruvian archaeologists, carried out several excavations on the Paracas Peninsula, which is located a few hundred kilometers south of Lima. Tello's work brought to light a large and elaborate cemetery, in which each tomb contained entire mummified families. Each member of the family was wrapped in precious colored fabrics, but the most curious aspect was not this. Rather, it was some of the mummies' skulls. These appeared enormously elongated. While, as we said earlier, this practice was used in several parts of the world, the Paracas skulls show some unique characteristics. The technique of cranial deformation can change the shape of the skull, but it cannot affect its volume. Tello, during his excavations, found about 300 skulls that had a cranial volume 25% greater than normal, and the weight was different as well. In fact, these weigh on average 60% more than contemporary human skulls from the same area. So if it's possible to change the shape of a skull through the practice of binding, what could affect their volume? Some researchers have hypothesized that these could be the result of a disease known as hydrocephalus, which tends to expand the volume of the skull due to the accumulation of cerebrospinal fluid. But this hypothesis fails for at least 2 reasons. The first is that Professor Tello found about 300 skulls in these conditions, which is statistically impossible since it is a very rare pathology. The second reason is that the characteristics of cranial deformation are different. A hydrocephalic skull takes on a more spherical shape, not elongated in the back like the ones found in Paracas. In addition to this, further anomalies have been highlighted. For example, a difference in the composition of the cranial bones has been found. In fact, in this case, the sagittal suture is not present, and it has more pronounced cheekbones. Additionally, the eye sockets appear different from those of typical human skulls. All these aspects suggest that this is more likely a genetic difference rather than a characteristic resulting from a simple skull shaping practice, which, moreover, would never have been able to produce such pronounced anomalies. Professor Tello believed that the Paracas people were connected to the people of the Chavan culture, the same ones who built the famous megalithic site of Chavanhuantar. His theory was based on the surprising artistic similarities between the two civilizations, especially in ceramics and depictions of felines. For this reason, the professor dated the Paracas civilization to about 3,000 years ago. But recent studies conducted on the DNA of the Paracas skulls show that they were not related to any population in Peru, and therefore it is believed that they were a civilization that predated the Chavin. Moreover, elongated skulls have never been found in the area where the Chavin lived. To summarize, we can say that the analysis of the Paracas skulls challenges the idea that cranial deformation could only be the result of ritual practices, but instead suggests that this could have been a genetic trait of an ancient population. Added to this is the result of genetic analyses, which rule out any connection with the populations that lived in that area about 3,000 years ago. So, who were the civilists?
3.000 anni fa. Quindi, chi erano i Paracas?
Some recent discoveries have revealed that the Paracas population occupied the Nazca area before the arrival of the tribal populations. Could they then be the creators of the famous and mysterious geoglyphs known as the Nazca lines? According to several independent researchers, all these aspects would be proof that the Paracas are the descendants of an ancient people unknown to us, but who nevertheless left numerous clues around the world. As we said at the beginning, the discovery of elongated skulls is not only a peculiarity of the Paracas people, but is widespread all over the world. But if the elongated skulls of Paracas are not the result of artificial deformation, what do we know about the other finds from elsewhere in the world? Are they also attributable to an ancient people, and is that the result?
How beautiful and great you are, while you shine high above every land, and your rays embrace the earth, up to the limits you have set, because you are the sun, and you reach their borders and subject them to your son of the bed.
This is an excerpt from the hymn to the god Aton, the sun god, the supreme god. This hymn legitimizes the power of Akhenaten, the pharaoh who, according to Egyptologists, reigned between 1375 and 1336 BC. Akhenaten is known as the heretic pharaoh. During his reign, he renounced the multitude of deities and introduced the monotheistic worship of Aton. He started a real revolution in Egypt. He brought back the ancient exiles, teachings dating back to the period of the construction of the pyramids, an era considered one of purity and the belief that the sun of justice and love would never set. Akhenaten is the king, the high priest entrusted with maintaining the heritage of the ancestors as the holder of both spiritual and temporal power on earth. Akhenaten left an indelible mark on the history of ancient Egypt, and in some ways, some religious scholars have seen a sort of affinity between the thinking of the pharaoh and that of Jesus Christ. But it is not only his thoughts and actions that made Akhenaten a prominent figure of ancient Egypt. The pharaoh also had some very distinctive physical features. Akhenaten actually had an androgynous appearance, fingers almost twice as long as normal, and an incredibly elongated skull, very similar in characteristics to those found in Paracas. His appearance was incredibly unusual. Some researchers have even described it as almost alien-like. But he wasn't the only one with this particular physique. His wife Nefertiti also appears with an elongated head and very distinctive facial features, as do the daughters of the royal couple, who also display these unusual characteristics. To explain Akhenaten's unusual appearance, some researchers have suggested that the pharaoh suffered from a particular condition, Marfan syndrome. One of its effects is precisely to cause an androgynous appearance and malformations of the skull. But if that were the case, how do we explain the appearance of his wife, who shared no blood relation with the pharaoh? Immediately after Akhenaten's death, his figure was erased from ancient Egypt. The names and images depicting him were removed from many monuments, and his revolutionary city of Akhenaten, today's Amarna, was abandoned. They returned to polytheistic worship, and Akhenaten's reign and its revolutionary impact were erased from history forever. If we can't rule out that Akhenaten really looked the way he was depicted, what about his descendants? Instead, according to some researchers, they were depicted this way for artistic reasons. But why this artistic style was used only for 2 or 3 members of the royal court has never been fully clarified. At this point, we can't help but wonder if the depictions of elongated skulls found in Egypt and the discoveries made in the rest of the world are simply the result of pathologies, artificial manipulations, or symbolic rituals. According to several independent researchers, all this would lead us down a new path. This would indeed be a practice that originated in ancient times and then spread throughout the world, but its origin would be much more mysterious, and it might not always be traceable to rituals, manipulations, or physical pathologies. An important piece of evidence, for example, is provided by 2 influential scientists who lived in the 19th century, the Peruvian anthropologist Mariano Eduardo de Riviero and the Swiss naturalist and explorer Johann Jakob von Tschudi, who claim to have found a fetus with an elongated head in the womb of a mummy.
The same confirmation, that is, the absence of signs of artificial pressure on the head, is found in unborn children as well. And we had definite proof of this by observing a fetus found in the womb of a mummy of a pregnant woman, which we found in a cave in Huichay, 2 leagues away from Tarma, and which is currently in our collection. Professor Trepon, a well-known figure in the field of obstetrics, confirmed that the fetus is 6 months into gestation. According to the very well-defined shape of the skull, it belongs to the Huancas tribe. We present the reader with a drawing of this conclusive and interesting evidence. In opposition to those who claim that mechanical forces are the sole and exclusive causes of the cranial shape of the Peruvian race.
Another very interesting discovery took place in Peru, where the mummy of a child only 10 months old was found. Scientists have dated it between 6,000 and 6,500 and 8,000 years, therefore predating any Egyptian mummy. The mummy is now known as the Death Detmold child, and it also shows the surprising characteristic of having a dolichocephalic skull. So, if there is evidence of elongated skulls in very young children, and even in fetuses from thousands of years ago, is it possible that dolichocephalic skulls are not just the result of artificial manipulation, but are actually evidence of an ancient people? It's important to point out that these findings are not limited to just the specific individual cases we're mentioning, but dolichocephalic skulls, as we mentioned earlier, have been found on almost every continent on Earth, and the earliest evidence dates back to a very ancient era. The first evidence of dolichocephalic skulls actually goes back to the Mousterian remains from Shanidar in Iraq, which are dated approximately between 300,000 and 30,000 years ago. This suggests that the supposed practice of intentionally shaping the skulls of infants was an ancient custom existing since prehistoric times. This custom was, for example, known in cities like Byblos as early as 4000 BC, and later spread further through the migrations of peoples such as the Scythians and the Huns in Europe. In many cultures, there is also a tradition that cranial deformation was a divine command given by deities who came to Earth in ancient times. An ancient tradition from Polynesia, for example, tells how this practice was taught by a group of light-skinned individuals who came from the sky. Similarly, in Central America, there are parallel stories that tell of celestial deities who ordered the ancestors of the ancient Native Americans to adopt this practice. In Peru, it is said that the god Manco Capac imposed cranial deformations to ensure that the offspring would be weak, submissive, and obedient, even though no evidence has ever been found that this practice caused these effects on those who underwent it. It is also curious that in South America, the presence of elongated skulls follows a precise geographical path from the mining areas southeast of Lake Titicaca near Potosi in Bolivia to the city of Cajamarca in the northwest of Peru. This path seems to follow what is called the path of Viracocha. Viracocha in Inca mythology is considered the creator god, the one who formed the world, humans, and all the other deities. There are many clues that suggest something we still don't know is hidden behind this ancient practice, and inevitably a question arises. Could the pre-Columbian civilizations, the Egyptian civilization, and many other cultures have an ancient common origin? Of course, there are many hypotheses. Some believe that the people with elongated skulls were an ancient people, endowed with wisdom and knowledge, whose origins are lost in the depths of time. Other researchers, on the other hand, believe that these men with dolichocephalic skulls are evidence of a people who came from the stars, proof of an ancient contact between humans and an alien civilization. Currently, to verify this hypothesis, various DNA tests are being conducted on the elongated skulls. However, there is still no definitive data available, but as soon as it is published, we will talk about it in upcoming videos. But in conclusion, at least one thing we can be sure of. This tradition was very important to our ancestors, so much so that it spread all over the world and was passed down to modern times. Well, now we're curious to know your opinion. Write in the comments what you think about it. We'll be back to talk about it soon, and if you like the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support our work. Until the next story.